With Al Haitham's release date being near, it's time for me to post my last pre-release video about him. I'm sure that a lot of my subscribers mainly know me because of the videos I made about him. I'm thankful for your support. It has been a wonderful month for my channel. In this video, I will talk about his quickswap potential, something that has been underrated during beta from many people, myself included to an extent. Let's get straight into it. First of all, what am I referring to with quickswap potential? Something I want to emphasize is that I'm not talking about his potential as a burst DPS, something that I've already addressed in the video I made about his synergy with Raiden. The thing I'm talking about is a quickswap playstyle more similar to Keqing and Tignari. Basically, it's a playstyle where all units on the team can switch in and out with little personal damage loss, allowing all of them to function better from an energy recharge perspective and even an elemental skill or burst uptime perspective in some cases. For example, let's see how a Keqing Quicken team with Kazuha, Nahida, Fischl and Keqing plays out. The first thing you're doing is applying Electro with Fischl and then get a sword from Kazuha to get electro resistance reduction and his buffs up. Then it's Nahida's turn on the field to enable Quicken. After that, you go back to Fischl to cast Oz, will snapshot Kazuha's buffs for the entirety of his duration. Finally, after that, you go in with Keqing, and you proceed with a standard rotation for her, where you use her skill to apply Infusion, her burst, and a couple of her attack strings. What comes next is what makes Keqing's potential ramp up on Quicken teams. In fact, Keqing is a unique character, because her burst has low cooldown, and she can reapply her Infusion basically at will, which means you can switch out from her, reapply Kazuha's buffs and resistance reduction, reapply Nahida's skill, and recast Fischl's Oz, before going back to her and basically make her do the same thing she did before. Keqing being able to do that is extremely useful. Theoretically, now imagine if instead of having two 6 to 7 seconds damage windows, Keqing had a single 12 to 13 seconds damage window, with the same output. The result is that you can't ensure full uptime from Oz, and you halven your Kazuha's potential. Moreover, it would severely limit her potential in multi-wave content, as being able to reapply Nahida's elemental skill midway through the rotation is essential to ensure the team damage will remain consistent in those situations. Now, I will explain how Al Haitham can achieve something similar, despite being a unit that can benefit from a single sustained rotation. Al Haitham's damage output relies mainly on one thing, namely his capability to create mirrors. Not only the mirrors account for around 70% of his damage output, but also they provide Dendro Infusion for his attacks, so having at least one up at all times is essential for his damage. Ideally, from a damage standpoint on spread teams, it should be optimal for him to spend the entirety of his field time in a rotation during a single window, since there are ways for him to keep 3 mirrors up consistently for 12 seconds, which is the average field time for sustained DPS. However, as I've said earlier, having a breakpoint during your rotation to allow you to take advantage of your supports better and realistically allow you to adjust to multi-wave or multi-phases content has very realistic benefits, and it's probably a more sensible option overall. So, how can he do that? Simple, he can have one window of field time, where he uses his elemental skill to get 2 mirrors right off the bat, and then follow it with a couple of combos to get 2 or 3 procs. Then he can switch out, leave room for his supports, swap back in, and use his elemental burst to set up 3 mirrors and follow it up with more combos to get 4 to 5 procs. As you might have noticed, this sounds incredibly similar to what Keqing can do. It's just less apparent because of Al Haitham's inability to keep Dendro Infusion up when it switches out, but as long as you manage your mirror generation properly, that's virtually the same thing. Based on my calculations, this type of playstyle generally makes Al Haitham's team rotations longer compared to his more sustained playstyle, but the DPS stays relatively similar despite of that, which means his team damage per rotation increases. In rather terms, a rotation that ends up having similar DPS compared to another, while being longer and allowing quickswap. In fact, a longer rotation with those conditions considerably eases your energy requirements too, and just makes more sense in most scenarios. Take Magu Kenki as an example. His phase 1 ends at about 70% of his HPs, so if you're running a rotation that doesn't have a breakpoint, you're likely wasting the remainder of your rotation damage, which is bad. Alternatively, what if you're facing bosses that don't have multiple phases, like the Dendro Chicken, and you can potentially end the fight with a shorter rotation? Simple, you can go back to that for that fight alone. This type of flexibility is what differentiates Al Haitham from most of the carries released in the last 2 years, and what will make him shine more than others in certain type of content regardless of his damage. To me, versatility and flexibility are just as important as factors compared to raw damage dealt, so this outlook makes Al Haitham really interesting from my point of view. It also makes his Constellation one more interesting, although I'll go more in depth on that after his release. I'm done for today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. See you next time!